Am I the asshole for warning my nephew that his bullying will eventually backfire? I never thought I'd be posting here about family drama, but here we are. This situation has been eating at me for weeks, and I genuinely don't know if I handled it right. My nephew Jake, 13 male, has always been, let's call it challenging. Even as a little kid, he had this cruel streak that made family gatherings uncomfortable. You know that kid who pulls wings off flies and thinks it's hilarious? That was Jake, except instead of insects, his targets were people's feelings. His humor has always revolved around tearing others down. He'd make jokes about someone's weight, their clothes, the way they talked, walked, or breathed. Nothing was off limits. My sister always brushed it off as boys being boys, or he's just got a sharp sense of humor. I bit my tongue for years because, hey, not my kid, not my rules, right? But lately, Jake has evolved from casual cruelty to full-blown systematic bullying, and he's proud of it. 3 weeks ago, we were at a family barbecue. Jake was in an unusually chatty mood, probably riding high on whatever fresh hell he'd unleashed at school that week. He started telling everyone about his latest project, a girl in his grade he'd been targeting. "There's this total weirdo in my English class," he said, grinning like he'd solved world hunger. "She's obsessed with baby games like Mario and Pokémon. Like, grow the hell up, you know? She watches anime and draws these cringe characters in her notebook." My stomach started turning, but he wasn't done. So me and Tyler figured we'd help her understand how pathetic she is. Every day at lunch, we sit near her and just educate her. We call her R-word Rita because she's obviously mentally damaged or whatever. We tell her that her interests are for babies and ask her when she's planning to join the real world. The adults around the table were giving those uncomfortable laughs people do when they don't know how to respond. My sister was nodding along like Jake was recounting a funny movie plot. "But here's the best part," Jake continued, his eyes lighting up with genuine excitement. "Yesterday, I told her, 'No wonder you have no friends,' and she just started bawling right there in the cafeteria, like ugly crying in front of everyone. It was so funny. She tried to hide under her hoodie, but everyone could hear her sobbing." He was practically bouncing in his chair. "Tyler recorded some of it on his phone. She cries almost every day now. It's honestly hilarious how sensitive she is." The silence that followed felt like a physical weight. I could see my other relatives shifting uncomfortably, suddenly very interested in their potato salad. But my sister? She was beaming with pride. "Oh, Jake, you're terrible. But honestly, if this girl can't handle a little teasing, maybe she does need to toughen up. The real world isn't going to coddle her forever." That's when something inside me snapped. "Jake," I said, setting down my drink with probably more force than necessary, "you need to stop. Now." The cocky grin slid right off his face. "What? Why? It's not like I'm hitting her or anything." "Because," I leaned forward, making sure I had his full attention, "one day you're going to pick the wrong target. You think everyone's just going to take your abuse and cry quietly in a corner? You're playing with fire, kid." "What do you mean?" he asked, but his voice had lost some of its earlier bravado. "I mean, you're going to mess with someone who doesn't break down and sob. Someone who fights back. Someone who's been pushed too far by people like you and decides they're done being a victim. And when that day comes, when you pick on some kid who's tired of being everyone's punching bag, the consequences aren't going to be pretty for you." Jake's face had gone pale, but I wasn't finished. "You think what you're doing is funny, but you're systematically destroying another human being. You're taking someone who's already struggling to fit in and making their life hell for your entertainment. That girl goes home every day and probably cries herself to sleep because of what you put her through. And you're proud of that? But she's weird," Jake started. "So what?" I cut him off. "Being different doesn't make her less human. It doesn't give you the right to torment her. And here's what you're too young and stupid to understand. The weird kids you're picking on, they're often the ones who remember everything. They're the ones who don't forget faces or names. They're the ones who sometimes snap." My sister had been getting redder and redder throughout my speech. Finally, she exploded. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she screamed at me. "You're literally threatening a child. You're trying to scare him with some school shooter fantasy? That's sick." "I'm not threatening anyone," I replied, trying to keep my voice level. "I'm warning him that actions have consequences. I'm telling him that systematically abusing people can lead to situations he's not prepared to handle." "You're being a bully," she shot back. "You're sitting here intimidating my son, trying to scare him into submission. You're no better than those kids you're so worried about. Your son is literally bragging about making a girl cry every single day, and I'm the bully? He's just being a typical teenage boy. She probably is weird if everyone's picking on her. Maybe this will teach her to be more normal." The conversation devolved from there. My sister accused me of being too harsh and traumatizing Jake with my violent scenarios. She said I was putting ideas in his head, that I should apologize to him immediately. I left the barbecue early and haven't spoken to either of them since. But now I'm second-guessing myself. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I shouldn't have painted such a dark picture for a 13-year-old. Maybe there was a gentler way to address this. Then again, every day I don't act, that girl is going through hell. Every day Jake continues this behavior, he's becoming more entrenched in the idea that cruelty is acceptable. Every day my sister enables him, he's creating a monster. I keep thinking about that girl. Let's call her Maria. I don't even know her real name, but I can picture her perfectly. Probably small for her age, maybe with thick glasses, carrying a backpack covered in anime pins that she's proud of until Jake and his friend make her ashamed of everything she loves. I imagine her eating lunch alone while these two predators circle her like sharks, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I think about her going home and telling her parents she's sick so she won't have to face another day of humiliation. I think about her losing interest in the things that used to bring her joy because they've been weaponized against her. I think about her looking in the mirror and seeing all the flaws Jake has pointed out, believing she deserves the treatment she's receiving. And then I think about Jake getting positive reinforcement for this behavior from his friends, his mother, and apparently the school system that's doing nothing to stop it. Where does this end? Does Maria eventually switch schools? Her education disrupted because my nephew and his friend made her life unbearable? Does she hurt herself because the pain becomes too much? Does Jake escalate because the daily humiliation isn't giving him the same rush anymore? Or, and this is what I was really trying to warn him about, does someone eventually fight back? Not necessarily with violence, though that's always a possibility when you systematically torture someone. Maybe Maria's older brother finds out what's happening and decides Jake needs a lesson in empathy. Maybe Maria herself finally reaches her breaking point and Jake discovers that the quiet girl he's been tormenting knows exactly which of his insecurities to exploit. I've seen it happen before. The kid everyone picks on suddenly has nothing left to lose, and the bullies learned very quickly that their victims often know them better than they know themselves. They've been studying their tormentors, learning their weaknesses, waiting for the right moment to use that information. But maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe I should have just told Jake that being mean isn't nice and left it at that. Maybe my sister is right, and I traumatized a kid who was just being a typical teenager. Except nothing about Jake's behavior feels typical to me. The gleeful way he described making Maria cry, the careful premeditation of his attacks, the pride he takes in her suffering. That's not normal teenage meanness. That's something darker. So here I am, asking a bunch of strangers on the internet, am I the asshole for warning my nephew that his bullying behavior could eventually backfire? Should I have stayed quiet and let him continue tormenting this girl? Was my warning too harsh? Too scary? Too adult for a 13-year-old to handle? And if I'm not the asshole, what do I do now? Do I call the school? Do I try to find Maria's parents? Do I keep pushing my sister to address Jake's behavior, even though she clearly sees nothing wrong with it? I don't have kids of my own, so maybe I don't understand the complexities of raising teenagers. Maybe I'm missing some crucial piece of the puzzle that would make Jake's behavior seem normal or acceptable. But I keep coming back to one simple truth. Somewhere out there is a 13-year-old girl who dreads going to school every day because my nephew has made it his mission to destroy her self-worth. And everyone around him is either cheering him on or looking the other way. If that doesn't make me want to shake some sense into him, consequences and all, then what kind of person does that make me? Reddit, am I the asshole here? Update. A lot of you are asking if I've tried to contact the school or Maria's parents. The honest answer is I don't know her real name, what school they go to, Jake lives in a different district, or how to find her parents. I'm considering asking Jake's mom for more details so I can reach out, but given our current relationship status, that seems unlikely to work. Also, several comments have pointed out that Jake's behavior might escalate regardless of my warning. That's not a comforting thought, but you're probably right. The glee he showed when describing Maria's pain suggests this goes deeper than typical teenage social dynamics. Top comments. NTA at all. I'm a middle school teacher, and I see this exact scenario play out constantly. What your nephew is doing isn't normal teenage behavior. It's systematic psychological abuse. The fact that he's recording her crying, that's sociopathic behavior that will 100% escalate if left unchecked. Your sister is failing her son by not addressing this. In my 15 years of teaching, I've seen the harmless class clowns turn into adults who abuse their romantic partners, workplace harassment cases, and worse. The kids like Jake don't just grow out of it, they get better at hiding it. Also, you're spot on about picking the wrong target. I've seen the quiet kid finally snap, and it's never pretty for anyone involved. Last year, we had a situation where the weird anime girl turned out to have 3 older brothers who found out what was happening. Let's just say Jake's equivalent learned very quickly that actions have consequences. Please consider calling the school anyway, even without knowing her name. Describe the situation. They'll know exactly who you're talking about. Edit. The more I think about this, the more concerned I am. Recording victims crying is a huge red flag. This isn't casual bullying. This is predatory behavior. Comment. Your nephew is literally describing my middle school experience, down to the Pokémon and anime interests. I'm 28 now and still dealing with the trauma from kids exactly like Jake. You know what happened to my main bully? He peaked in 8th grade. Last I checked his Facebook, he's working retail and posting angry rants about how society owes him something. Meanwhile, I'm a software engineer making 6 figures doing what I love. But here's the thing. I also know exactly where he lives, where he works, what car he drives, and I remember every single cruel thing he ever said to me. I would never act on that information, but your nephew has no way of knowing what kind of person he's creating when he systematically destroys someone's self-worth. NTA. Someone needed to tell him the truth. Comment. Info. Have you considered that Jake might be getting bullied himself, and this is how he's dealing with it? Not excusing his behavior at all, but sometimes kids who are victims at home or elsewhere become predators at school. Either way, your sister's reaction tells me everything I need to know about where Jake learned this behavior. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Author. That's actually a really good point I hadn't considered. Jake's dad, my sister's ex, was pretty verbally abusive before they divorced. Maybe Jake learned that power dynamics are about finding someone weaker to push around. Still doesn't excuse what he's doing to Maria, but it might explain the psychology behind it. Comment. NTA, and please, please, please find a way to contact that school. What you described, the systematic targeting, the recording, the daily harassment, this is the kind of situation that leads to self-harm or worse. I work with kids who've been bullied like this, and the psychological damage is severe. They develop anxiety, depression, school avoidance, social phobia. Some never fully recover their self-esteem. Your nephew needs professional intervention, not coddling from his mother. This behavior pattern doesn't just stop, it escalates. Today it's calling a girl the R word, tomorrow it's sexual harassment, and by college it's date rape because he's learned that other people exist for his entertainment. I'm not being dramatic. I've literally seen this progression happen multiple times in my career. Comment. My daughter is exactly like the girl your nephew is targeting. She's 14, loves anime, draws constantly, and is probably on the spectrum, getting evaluated next month. Reading your post made me physically sick because this is my worst nightmare as a parent. She comes home from school quiet some days, and I always wonder if something like this is happening. You are absolutely NTA for warning Jake. In fact, you didn't go far enough. If someone was doing this to my daughter and I found out who they were, I'd be having a very different kind of conversation with their parents. And it wouldn't be nearly as civilized as yours was. Your sister is raising a monster, and she's proud of it. That's terrifying. Author. This broke my heart to read. Please keep checking in with your daughter. The fact that you're aware and watching out for her already puts her in a better position than Maria seems to be in. I hope her evaluation goes well and she gets whatever support she needs. Comment. I was Jake in middle school. Not proud of it, but I need to share this perspective. I targeted the weird kids because they were safe targets. They wouldn't fight back, their parents didn't have social influence, and other kids would laugh instead of stopping me. It made me feel powerful when everything else in my life felt chaotic. My parents' messy divorce. Want to know what stopped me? A teacher pulled me aside and told me exactly what you told Jake, that I was going to pick the wrong target someday and face consequences I wasn't prepared for. She also made me write apology letters to every kid I could remember hurting. It was humiliating, and I hated her for it at the time. But it worked. I stopped bullying people and actually became friends with some of the kids I'd tormented after I genuinely apologized. Jake's mom is doing him no favors by protecting him from consequences. You might have been the wake-up call he needed. NTA. Author. Thank you for sharing this. It gives me hope that Jake might actually listen, even if he doesn't show it right now. Did you ever reconnect with the kids you bullied as adults? Answer. A few of them, yeah. Most were surprisingly forgiving once they saw I genuinely changed. But one girl told me she developed an eating disorder partially because of my comments about her weight, and that still haunts me 20 years later. That's why I always tell people that words have power. You never know what damage you're really doing. Comment. NTA, but be prepared for potential legal issues if this escalates. If Jake's behavior continues and something happens to Maria, self-harm, family takes legal action, etc., your sister might try to blame your threatening conversation for putting ideas in his head. Document everything. Dates, what was said, witnesses present. If you do contact the school, do it in writing and keep copies. Also, what Jake and his friend are doing likely violates the school's anti-bullying policies and could potentially be considered harassment or even disability discrimination if Maria is on the spectrum. Schools are legally required to provide a safe learning environment. This isn't just about hurt feelings. There could be serious legal consequences for Jake's family if they don't address this behavior now. Write what you think about this situation. Also, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.